Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising. Today, we want to delve into an issue that is very obvious as you look at it, but is very easily missed unless you're looking at global demographic data. And that is what we're calling the age dilemma. There's a lot of discussion about the fact that in many countries around the world, in India and South Asia, Africa, Latin America, the populations are getting younger and younger. A statistic came out of India not long ago saying that a fully 700 million Indians in a population of 1.4 billion, now the largest country in the world by population, exceeding even China, are under 25 years old. And we look at that demographic and we are astonished that so many people in the global population of 8 billion are as young as they are. At the other end of the spectrum, in the United States, in Europe, in Japan, in most of the industrial countries, the populations are getting older and older. Fully 50% of the US, European, and Japanese populations are over 50 years old. And that's a dilemma for the policymakers and for humanity in general, is how do we deal with the simultaneity of populations getting older and older as lifespans increase, and yet getting younger and younger as people proliferate, particularly in the global South. So that's the issue that we want to explore today with two people who've really dedicated several decades in seeking to understand the dilemma of demographics, but also with a concentration on how to empower people in the countries where the populations are aging. So that's our subject for today. Before we jump in, let us pause, as we always do as we begin our Humanity Rising sessions, and let us just simply breathe together. So in a moment, for those of you who are new, you'll hear the sound of a bell. When you hear the bell, just breathe in for about 5.5 seconds, and you'll hear the sound of another bell, and just breathe out for about 5.5 seconds. You'll take in 5.5 liters of air for 5.5 breaths in a minute. We'll take 10 breaths together, and then we will commence our program. Thank you, everyone, and welcome to Humanity Rising. Thank you, everyone. It's always so good to breathe as one. And in the spirit of breathing together, it's my pleasure to introduce George and Sedena Cappannelli. You'll know George and Sedena from previous programs on Humanity Rising. They are married. They are working partners. They're co-founders of Age Nation and Empower New Mexico. They are co-producers of the 40 series Ageless Living programs that are still being aired on public broadcasting stations around the United States. They've written numerous books together. One of their recent books, Do Not Go Quietly, about aging in the United States and in Western Europe, won numerous awards. They are co-producing Celebrating Life 2023 that will be featured on Humanity Rising in the next several months. They have been really instrumental, particularly George, in building Humanity Rising as it's evolving into Humanity Rising Network. George has convened numerous programs on Humanity Rising, as most of you know, on protecting and empowering democracy in particular, also innovative technologies. So George and Sedena, it's wonderful to have you back on Humanity Rising to talk about something about which you're so passionate in terms of empowering those of us who are over 50 years of age in a global population that is getting younger and younger. So it's with real pleasure that I turn the program over to you.
Well, thanks, Jim. As always, thanks for convening these wonderful programs. It's good to be with you all.
Yes, thank you, Jim. I'm truly delighted to finally be on here. I've, been a witness to Humanity Rising for a very long time, as you and George and Tom are doing your thing and getting this rolling. And we're just so grateful for this forum, this opportunity to hear and speak to really, truly subjects that we have to look at in our world, in this challenging time of our world. So I'm blessed to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Jim, I also want to say that we should have talked sooner because we could have changed the title to the aging dichotomy and the aging dilemma, you see, and then we would have covered both halves of this equation. But we're going to talk about the dilemma part today, and thanks for all of this.
Thank you, Jim.
So we're going to talk about this aging dilemma today because it's clear to Sedena and me individually and collectively to a lot of us that we face a whole lot of challenges, climate disaster and impending climate migration, the threat to democracy, the war in Ukraine with all of its nuclear threats and dangers, economic uncertainty, the threat of new pandemics they're now warning us about, and food insecurity and so many others. So as a result, it's understandable and at the same time really unfortunate that another code red issue of our time, this demographic revolution, has apparently slipped off our collective public radar. It's especially unfortunate because in this 24/7 media mad world, what's out of sight quickly gets out of mind, And the problem with this demographic revolution getting out of sight and out of mind is that it doesn't stop this relentless march that's going to continue for the next 50 years of this century. So that eventually, as some say, 50% of the industrialized population in most of these countries will be 50 years of age and older for the first time at the same time in history. And if you really let that sink in, you consider some of the economic, social, and the political implications. So what Sedena and I do, and what we're committed to, is to prevent that slipping off the radar from happening. And we're also committed to making sure that we all better understand what the implications and what part of the solutions can be.
Yeah, and we, as part of that, please know it's not going to just be about a dilemma. We're going to offer you a lot of amazing, life-affirming solutions and another perspective on all of this, which is why we're here. And we want to start off, our book, Do Not Go Quietly, opens with these words that we want to share with you. Not quietly. No, we will not go quietly. Cannot. Not meekly into this or any other night. We who cheered when Martin marched, and who first heard Rachel Carson's call, we who lost our heroes to hate and tried to find ourselves in love.
We who died at Kent State and cheered when the wall came down. We who celebrated the loss, or who contributed to the loss of America's grace, celebrated the rebirth of hope, and then again allowed the unprincipled to gain control again. We will not, cannot go quietly, not meekly into this or any other night.
Excuse me, we will harvest our experience and bathe the moon of new possibility. We will dance to life's mysteries and forge a path of renewed promise for ourselves and for those who come after us.
We who hold in our hands and hearts the power to resurrect the dream, who stood on the front lines before and who are called to do so again, will not, cannot go meekly, not quietly into this or any other night.
These words speak to some of the hope and promise that we have for a future that's more inspired, accountable, positive, and conscious than what we have seen demonstrated in our current landscape. They also speak to some of our individual and collective past victories, our lessons learned, lots of those, as well as our stumbles, and above all, our still unanswered questions and unhealed wounds. Boy, do we have a lot of those. And our unfinished work, and that's what we want to talk about. Work that we believe is ours to do, and that in good conscience we cannot leave for future generations, especially those of us who made promises to change the world for the better for the younger in our world, and are still short of that goal. We're very short of it. So in time, we're going to speak to some of that unanswered, unhealed, unfinished things, those things that we believe we can do to fulfill this promise.
Before we do that, we thought it might be helpful to share some of our personal story about why we do this work. It's funny sometimes. I know in my life, and it's probably true in yours, before I step into something larger, there are these little clues and steps along the way until whatever it is grabs my attention. My awareness about aging was like that. Earlier in my consulting career, I did some work with an organization called AHSA, AHSA, American Homes and Services for the Aging. Today it's called Leading Age, and it's one of the largest organizations in the world that deals with age-related topics. It was really my first in-depth exposure to the subject. And then a little later, a second hint came along, and that is my parents were in their late 80s, and my sister and I began to notice that they required a lot more assistance, and that there was beginning to be a role reversal where we were becoming decision makers and responsible in different ways. And I discovered I wasn't prepared for that. I also discovered that my parents weren't really prepared for it. They were prepared financially in some ways for the second half of life and for some of those stages, but they weren't prepared emotionally and intellectually and spiritually in a lot of ways for the transition that they really needed to make. And the more I looked around, the more I realized that my family and I weren't alone. I discovered there simply wasn't a blueprint in our society to help us answer these questions and deal with the challenges of late in life and end of life journeys. As things progressed, I understood something more. And that is, no matter how much money my folks had, or I had, or my sister had, my sister and I could not provide them with the same kind of daily love and attention and care that they had provided us when we were young. As things progressed, I was living in California and Arizona, and my parents were back east. And I found myself pulled and tortured in a lot of ways. I mean, I felt devastated that I couldn't serve them the way they served me. And part of it was the diaspora of society spreading out, families and all the rest of it. And part of it was a lack of understanding. So that's how I took a turn to doing what I've been doing with Sedena under Age Nation.
Well, I had a lot of the same issues, of course, that George had, because I was with him through his parents, through the passage, and that whole transition. It was very hard to feel so ineffectual. I felt the same thing about my own father got sick, and my mom was sort of on her own, and I lived in LA, and it was just frustrating to watch her and realize she really didn't have the tools that she needed. So thank God we have a lot of kids, because my brothers and sisters pitched in. But it was just, it really bothered me in a way that I can't even explain it now. And there's no good feeling guilty about anything. We did the best that we could, but we want to do better. But at the time, we were invited by clients that we had, like some consulting clients, to attend the International Conference on Aging in Sydney, Australia. And so we went, and it was an incredible experience. It actually was very life-changing, because there were experts there, and they were talking about all the good work that they were doing with the demographic revolution in their countries, doing incredible things for their elders. And I was so upset that I ended up in the ladies' room crying, looking at those little tiles on the floor, those black and white tiles, thinking, wow, why are we so far behind? What's wrong with us? Because the United States was at the bottom of the list. And but in any case, we were writing new books and hosting radio programs, creating online digital summits, conferences in a number of cities. We were consulting with private companies, and we were proud of our work. We were doing everything that we felt that we needed to do. We didn't realize how dramatically the demographic revolution was unfolding so fast. And this was in 2003. So, it's exponentially picked up here. In any case, on that long plane ride home from Australia, George and I, we decided, we just can't continue to live in a society anymore that's on its way to marginalizing its elders and pretending that it doesn't have any responsibility for them. We can't do that. We have to change things. It was already having an effect, this demographic revolution, on individual lives and on the lives of millions of Americans who were entering the second half of life, at one person every 7 seconds. So it's huge. It is really a tsunami, and it was happening, and we knew we couldn't deny it. So that's how we decided to start Age Nation, and that became our work. Here we are, our work for the second half of our lives.
So some other facts that you probably know about, but will remind you of: 10,000 people retire every day. Many of us will live longer after retirement than the number of years we've been gainfully employed. A significant number of us also, especially since the subprime crash and all the rest of it, we are lacking the resources we need to live that number of years in even modest dignity after retirement. The US doesn't have, it's the only industrialized country in the world that doesn't have a single payer healthcare system. While progress was made under the Obama administration to do some major changes, when Trump came along, those things were just wiped off the plate. And still today, the Republican Party is doing all it can to take apart the social safety net. Interesting fact that is the number of people in the US who are over 50 increase, the number of gerontologists decrease, because it doesn't fit the medical model of lining people up in medical rooms and going from one room to another as a doctor and writing scripts or whatever. You have to actually talk to older people and find out their story to find out how you can help them. We lost an opportunity in the 80s when we could have paid attention to building new kinds of communities, multi-generational communities, and unique communities for people who are aging, unique kinds of stores and businesses to serve them. And as a result, what's happening now in America is called aging in place. It's an even bigger lie than Trump was telling about the election, because you can't age in place as you age unless you want to lose socialization, unless you want to have a limited number of services, unless you want to pay an exorbitant amount of money for home care. And eventually, what we're finding is even with all of that, people who are aging lose the ability to care for their properties and their houses and to pay their real estate taxes, and they end up losing their homes. So it's a significant challenge. This is where part of the serious dilemma comes in, because we're not prepared for a world, especially in industrialized countries, and especially in the US, where people are required to take care of themselves on limited incomes as they age.
Yeah. So we want to take just a few minutes to share a few things we learned at that conference that I was talking about, and since then about the demographic revolution. And these are just some facts. 50% of the US population will soon be 50 at the same time for the first time in history. And this is equally true in the majority of industrialized nations. One person, as I said earlier, joins this population every 7 seconds. 10,000 people retire every day. Many of us live longer after retirement than the number of years that we were gainfully employed. That's an incredible statistic for me. We'll participate in the largest transfer of wealth in the history of the world. And a significant number of us will not have the resources to support lives of even modest dignity after retirement. So we really need to pay attention to this.
We asked, we decided to repeat that information so that you really hear it, because they're hard numbers to listen to and to accept. So the question is, what are just some of the things that we can do about it? First of all, we've made the mistake in our modern world to confuse wisdom and information. Another thing that we've done is we've opened up a gap between the various demographic segments. Because people who are older are what are called digital immigrants rather than digital natives, we've confused dexterity with intelligence. We've marginalized a number of people who are older, because a lot of our technology companies are run by young people. the technology is designed by young people. And instead of adding components like voice recognition software and other things that would keep a lot of aging people in the game, they refuse to do that. So we need to educate our population about the real issues. We have to remind people, as the indigenous cultures did, that people who are aging have a different kind of information, a different kind of discernment. Many of them, because they've lived through different periods in history, they actually understand that there's connectivity between historical cycles. And so you don't simply wipe the board clean. When we were doing a lot of major consulting with major organizations, it was during that time when there was this mania to downsize companies. And what most of those companies did was they selected their older workers who were costing more because of higher salaries and whatnot, and they sent them out to pasture. The only trouble is what went to pasture with those older people was the collective wisdom of the organization. And what also left was the ability to execute things in a different way. So what most companies then began to do was hire back their older workers at much higher rates as consultants. It was part of the mania of stupidity that grabs societies and cultures at times. So we need to re-educate. We need to eliminate the last acceptable remaining prejudice, which is ageism. And not only do other people have to do it, but those of us who are aging have to stop making negative jokes about ourselves and our status in life. And the other thing we need to do is build real bridges of collaboration between younger and older people, rather than pitting them against each other as economic segments vying for the same dollars. By collaborating, we can accomplish an enormous amount of good. Just a couple of other things. We should eliminate the tax on Social Security in some states that have it. We ought to cap or reduce real estate taxes for older Americans. If we're going to have to age in place, we ought to be able to keep our homes. And real estate taxes are the things that even people that have reverse mortgages run into as a serious problem. And then we ought to change the immigration policies of the United States. There are countries in the world that we are currently excluding people from entering the United States. And many of those countries are places where the care for aging people is remarkable. Families still take care of their own in that way. So why don't we let those people in and help us take care of our older Americans in another way? So those are just some ideas about things we can do.
You know, a lot of this is about just awareness, because let's face it, we can't change anything that we're not aware of. So it's acknowledging what's going on. And that's what we're doing here. It's been really pushed aside. You know, I woke up one morning, I had a dream. I couldn't believe, I kept getting this dream of Hester Prynne. You know, what the heck, you know, is that about? The Scarlet Letter. And it hit me, it all came together. It was this big A. And this and you know, she was this woman who was stoned to death for adultery. Well, the new A for me, I bolted up out of bed, was aging. You know, aging is it's a term that has just become a code red issue because there's so many of us. And a lot of times we don't see the value in our age. You know, it's elders are the keepers of collective wisdom. And it's their job to share what they know, and the good and the bad and all of it, so that we can learn and grow and we can take those lessons and course correct as we're going along the way. And so it's incredibly valuable to look at some of these things. I just want to add a couple to what George said. that really are things that are troublesome to me that just come right up is that the number of gerontologists are declining, which is not a good thing when the demographic is rising, and hospitals are failing to invest in longevity medicine. So it doesn't fit their economic model. We really need to encourage hospitals. We need to put more focus on longevity medicine and on preventative medicine for all of us, because as we age, we get, we're going to go through the bumps and grinds of aging.
There are a couple of other things that I think this is a good place to insert. We, those of us who are aged, have to recognize that right now, the way things are set up, nobody's going to take care of us. I don't mean if we have children and grandchildren, they're not going to take care of us, but many of them grow up, they move to other parts of the country, they will run into the same issues that Sedena and I ran into by being in different places than our families were. In addition, we have an obligation to take care of our own health. We have to be awake to what we eat. We have to be awake to our exercise. We have to be awake to the things that we can do with other people our age to support one another. A remarkable statistic, we had the privilege of doing a consulting intervention in Albuquerque, beginning with the Department of Senior Affairs and then working with all the city departments and then the city as a whole. And one of the things we discovered was that in Albuquerque, the Department of Senior Affairs generated 350,000 hours, volunteer hours, from their seniors that went into the school system and picking up people to bring them to appointments and all of the 350,000 hours. Do you have any idea what it would have cost the city of Albuquerque to pay for those 350,000 hours? And there's an army of educated, informed, experienced people who are over 65 in this country, who really want to contribute, who want to be involved. And if cities and towns and organizations took greater advantage of that army, it would be such a boost to the American economy. And people who are happily engaged are healthier. They cost society a hell of a lot less. So those are just some of the things that we can think about. And I'm sure as you're sitting out there, there are probably a ton of other ideas that come to you. And maybe before our program's over, we can talk about that with someone.
Yeah, I'm sure you are percolating with some good thoughts, and we'd love to hear any ideas. We're working with so many different organizations that are out there that are doing wonderful things. So it has begun. There is hope. I want you to know. And Nelson Mandela said that the impossible is only impossible until it is done. So we need to do it. We need to begin a lot of these things. And it just happens that it's something that's not been on our radar, and we have choices. We can show up in different ways in our world. We can remember, we have a thing called ageless living. We have this series on PBS that Jim mentioned earlier, 40 episodes with award-winning authors and experts. And it ran for 3 years. It's picked up by Amazon Prime now. And it's all about ageless living, which is, you may not have heard of it. It's a moment by moment choice, really. It's a constructive path. It's a way of thinking and being. It's a state of mind of knowing that we can live fully and completely and longer. But it doesn't even have to be about long. It's our inheritance. We are born ageless. Scientists tell us that we're part of a quantum unlimited universe of energy. And we know we're energy. Energy can't be destroyed. That's another fact. So this energy that we are is going to continue on after this form, this physical form that we're in. So let's take this energy of who we are. And, you know, just that fact really eliminates a lot of the, I don't know, just the way we treat our climate, the way our environment, everything around us is treated differently when we let go of the expediency, you know, because we're in the present moment. We are ageless and we are unlimited, like the universe that we're part of. If we can remember all those things, and coming into the present moment, the way Jim started the show, just in our breath, which brings us into the present moment. That's just so important as we're going forward, and honoring all the past, the missteps, the wins, all of it, and the, you know, unrepeatable, incomparable person that each one of us is. Just to remember that as we move forward in life and take each moment as precious and sacred, and share our gifts, no matter how old we are. And this thing of, you know, we're old and we're going to, you know, retire. Don't retire from life. Don't do that. Remember that you have wisdom and experience that no one else has. Only you have it. And you can show up and share that. So get off the couch, is what we like to say, and share who you are. It's incomparable, and you can help others in your own unique way and sing your own unique song in this cacophony of life that's going on right now.
So Jim before mentioned our book, Do Not Go Quietly. And one of the things that we share throughout that book are short little pieces about people throughout history who have accomplished great things. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we discovered in the writing of the book is that a lot of people we valued, revered, tried to emulate were people who hadn't even begun to accomplish their greatest achievements until they were in their 50s, their 60s, their 70s, their 80s, even their 90s. Think about them. Think about the names, the Da Vinci's, the Michelangelo's, the
Helen Keller.
Yeah.
Carl Jung, Eleanor Roosevelt, Jimmy Carter, Clara Barton, Lionel Hampton. I mean, it goes on and on. They didn't even begin until 83. Jack LaLanne, how about him? It's 95th year. He's still going strong. Martha Graham. It's just endless, these people that we know that just never gave up, and they kept sharing and sharing and creating incredible things for us all to enjoy and learn from.
So the next time somebody tells you, or you tell someone that they're too old, you ought to hear something echo in your head that says, that's just BS. You're not too old, and you never will be, just like you're never too young to live your dreams. Mm-hmm. So that's what the work is that Sedena and I have done a lot of, the courses, the live conferences, the syndicated radio programs and podcasts, the television specials and the series that we've talked about. We've done everything that we know how to do to bring to the attention of the world the fact that there is an aging dilemma. There is, as Jim says, an aging dichotomy, because you do have those countries where populations are younger and younger. They reproduce differently and in larger numbers than we do in the US. Look at China and their desire and need suddenly to reverse all of that policy about how many children a family could have and all the rest of it. So we're on a different path now. And from our standpoint, one of our next projects after the Ageless Living television series is this thing called Celebrating Life 2023. And it's interesting, we did a project in Jacksonville, Florida, 2009, 2010. Yeah. We were funded by United Way and the Area Agency on Aging and a lot of organizations in Florida that were age-related. And it was a very successful pilot. The media went crazy over it and all the rest of it. But unfortunately, several of our funders ran into economic difficulties. And so rather than rolling it out at that time, we put it aside for a while. And then COVID happened. And we watched in horror, as did much of the world, the impact COVID was having on two segments of our population, especially. The older, who were in living communities and assisted living environments, and what the death toll was in those environments. And in younger populations, both younger and older people were really impacted by the isolation and the reduction of services. And as Sedena and I watched that, we thought, there's something we can do about this. We don't have to let that be the message that people leave this time of COVID with. We can find some way perhaps to help inspire them and renew a sense of hope and optimism. And so that's how Celebrating Life 2023 was born. Originally, we were going to do it as a live event at the Albuquerque Convention Center. But two things became clear to us. One, we would only reach the people who came to the Albuquerque Convention Center. And the second thing that caught our attention was that we couldn't keep moving dates. Every time a new COVID strain showed up, live events weren't working. So we decided to do something virtually, something globally, something that was a nonprofit event that could raise awareness and funds for age-related projects. And so that's how Celebrating Life was born. And then, of course, Sedena, tell us about how we had to assemble our guests and luminaries and all the rest of it to make it work.
Oh yeah, well, we have quite a few. As you know, some of you know, all of our work from way back, we've been working with a lot of wisdom keepers, we call them, people that just have incredible wisdom and knowledge and who are experts in a lot of different fields. And that's what Ageless Living was about. So this is about celebrating life. So we gathered our friends and colleagues and a lot of new ones. So leading wisdom keepers, authors, experts, thought leaders, musicians, film and documentary makers, and luminaries, young and old, to share their insights and their inspiration, recommendations, and life-enhancing strategies. So that's the point of it. And we wanted this to go out to people everywhere as kind of a gift to the world. So we created strategic alliances with organizations like Charter for Compassion, an incredible organization with over 450 cities in 50 countries. So this is a global event. As George said, it's virtual. It's nonprofit, of course. It's a celebration. It's a conference, and it's an online. The whole thing is online, product services exposition. So it's a 3D being there kind of experience that's pretty phenomenal. We're very proud of the platform. And as George said, during COVID, you know, so many people got used to being online. This is a real experience. This really takes you inside. And then you get to choose your own because it's video on demand. You can watch whatever you want to watch, when you want to watch it, in the convenience of your home, and be inspired, be lifted up by whomever it is that you choose to watch that day, or whatever. You know, we have a lot of wonderful interludes in between the presentations that are coordinated into the whole conference. So you can watch a presentation and go, oh, what's this? And there'll be wonderful, inspiring young people talking, or older people. I mean, I'm talking celebrities like Redford and Vanessa Redgrave, talking about wisdom.
let's take a moment and Georg, would you roll that
Yeah, let's just show it.
that short invitations video?
Great.
I want to invite you to join us for Celebrating Life 2023.
Hi, I'm Dr. Barry Ramo. I hope you'll join us on Celebrating Life 2023. You'll really enjoy it.
Hello, I'm Andrew Cameron Bailey, and I'd like to invite you to this beautiful program called Celebration of Life 2023, and we're actually a part of that. We talk about consciousness, we talk about waking up, and we also talk about climate and solutions to this massive challenge that we face as a species. See you there. Bye-bye.
Hi, I'm Cynthia James. I'm so honored to be a guest in Celebrating Life 2023. If you want to just step into your power, stand in the grace that is yours by divine right, hey, please come and join us. It's spectacular, and you are going to get a lot of value.
Hi, I'm Joan Borosenko, and I sure hope you join us for Celebrating Life 2023.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lisa Miller. I invite you to join us for Celebrating Life 2023. As an entire globe, we are on the cusp of a new emergence, and this is not easy. This is what in clinical psychology we might call a developmental depression. And just as individuals go through deep despair that rises up into spiritual renewal, as a collective, we are in a developmental depression that is a knock at the door for our next phase of spiritual emergence, spiritual awareness. This is not lost time. This is not a failure. This is not downtime. This is the start, if you will, the ignition of the rise of a new spiritual awareness shared on our global community. What better time to be alive, and what more meaningful moment might one have to contribute?
Please join us for Celebrating Life 2023. You won't regret it.
Hi, I'm Marilyn Turkovich, the Executive Director of the Charter for Compassion. You're about to be a part of a monumental event, Age Nation, Celebrating Life. I think you're going to not only enjoy it, but be inspired by it.
Hi, I'm Stefan Schwartz, and I really encourage you to participate and take part in Celebrating Life 2023. It will change your life.
Hello, I'm Thomas Moore, and I hope you'll join me for Celebrating Life 2023.
Hey everyone, I'm Ben Rickey, the director of the documentary The Reunited States, executive produced by Van Jones. We're excited to showcase the film at the Celebrating Life event and conference, and encourage you all to come and join and enjoy the process.
Welcome. I'm so happy to be part of Celebrating Life 2023. I'm Master Min Tong Gu, Wisdom Healing Qigong teacher. So I'm so grateful to be here to share the ancient wisdom, ancient tradition, more importantly, in this modern world of greater stress and challenges, and deeply shifting the energy patterns within us, all around us, to celebrate who we are, celebrating life, celebrating our future generations to come.
Hello, friends and family. I am so excited to tell you about this event called Celebrating Life 2023. I want you to join me along with some amazing souls, people that you know, visionaries, speakers, game changers, people who have really great solutions on how we can live a life that's the best one we've ever known together.
So, thought you might enjoy some of our folks speaking directly to the audience. We're going to be doing a lot of that with social media and whatnot, you know. So many others, Mark Nepo, Larry Dawsey, Lynn Twist, Zach Bush, Anita Morjani, Chip Conley, David Suzuki, Gay and Katie Hendricks, Joe Coughlin, who's the director of MIT's Age Lab, David Corton, Jason Prawl, youth panels from Canada, and on and on and on, you know.
Right. We also have a wonderful collection of documentaries, which you heard mentioned there. The AI Dilemma, you don't want to miss. Dying to Know with Timothy Leary and Ram Dass, narrated by Robert Redford. The Third Harmony, Nonviolence, Awakening in Taos, narrated by Ali McGraw. Reunited States of America, Touching the Heart and Healing the Soul of America. Cancer, The Alternative Perspective by Nathan Crane. So many, so much. 5 tracks: Wellness, Wisdom, Wonder, and Info Entertainment. That's the films and documentary part. And then those interludes I was interjecting about. An example of those as well. Are we going to show that, George?
Georg, could you play those?
Yeah. Thank you, Georg.
Coming up.
In a traditional village, there used to be those who were called elders. They were seen as the repositories of experience, wisdom, which they wanted to share with succeeding generations.
Wisdom isn't an old guy on the top of a mountain with a loincloth and waist-length hair. Wisdom, to me, isn't an answer anyway. Wisdom is a question. It's like your mother saying, "Where have you been to this time of night?" The question was the answer. She didn't want you to tell her. And I think that's where wisdom is. It's in the constant questioning of where you are. And when you stop wanting to know, you're dead. You're walking, but you're dead.
Yes, into angazibona ngathini. Lona lichenjekile alisesengilo ngoba angithi lokhaya umntwana nalele sile kwagangileko uthathiswa zumthuso uthi ungasayenza linto.
Wisdom is about experience. Your experiences in your life, which hopefully would include risk taking and being somewhat adventurous.
I suppose importantly, risk it, go for it. You know, life always gives you another chance, another go at it. It's very important to take enormous risks and do the most daring.
You don't stop doing things because you get old. You get old because you stop doing things. People say you're very good for your age or something. I say, well, I haven't got time to grow old. I just don't have time. Far too busy.
I don't have to work anymore. And a lot of people, they don't want to work anymore when they get in that age because they don't like the work. I don't have to work, but I like to work. Only if you like to work can you actually do good things.
I had thought, oh, no, well, when I get old, there's going to be this sort of blissful sitting back and just feeling wise. Couldn't have been more wrong. Old age is a second adolescence.
I get sillier as I get older, so I don't know what wisdom means. I can only kind of pass on something that I've been acquainted with and let whoever it is pick the bones out of it. I don't know anything about wisdom, really.
So some really wonderful people, obviously.
Those are, as Sedena said, wonderful people. That those are a series. Will show you another example of interludes. We have interludes with young voices from around the world. We have music videos that will intersperse all of the talks and presentations. The idea is to create fun, to create energy, to create a real sense of celebration, to help us remember we're not the lunacy that some people in our world are trying to sell us today. We're not that fear. We're vital, engaged, remarkable human beings. And when we remember that, you know, when we really remember it, the sky's the limit, you know. We have a few minutes before we round out this section. Sedena, do you have something more before we maybe answer some questions or make comments in the chat?
Well, I just want to say that I believe in this world condition today, that we all know what's going on. I mean, Humanity Rising and Humanity Rising Network is addressing all of this. Thank God. And there's so many other wonderful people waking up to what this is. But it calls for us, especially those of us, we like to say, who weren't born yesterday, because we weren't. But it calls to us to not sit on the sidelines anymore, not act like we might be irrelevant, you know, but to really honor our relevance, our sovereignty, what it is that we bring to the world. The gift that we have to give to the world is really the wisdom that we've gained from experience. And so what is your experience? That's what we need to give. You know, I love this quote by Michael Altshuler. He says, "The bad news is time flies. The good news is you're the pilot." So let's come together and celebrate life and honor all that we are, every part of it, our wholeness, and really make our world fly, really heal our world on every level. That's what this is about, and we want you to join us.
I'm putting a link in the chat. So I'm a little slow here.
Are we going to do the interludes, George?
One second.
Okay.
I'm just letting you know that you can, I want to remind you, this is a free event
Yes.
for 9 days. And it's that way because we want as many human beings around the world as possible to be able to take advantage of it. So those of you who are watching this and are not, the chat isn't available to you, you just have to go to www.celebratinglife.org.
Celebrating Life
2023. Thanks.
.org.
And you get your front row seat and take advantage of it. Give it to everybody you know. Let's make this a genuine global celebration that can help us all remember how extraordinary we are. You know, I've been looking at the chat. I want to thank so many of you for your comments and all of the rest of that. If we haven't answered all of your questions, I know Jim has been following this, and in just a little bit, we'll invite him to come in. Before we do, we want to close with one other piece. This music video is by a young woman whose name is Tatiana Speed. And she's one of the many musicians who have donated and given their music videos to make it possible for us to smile and laugh and sing along and do whatever else we do between and after and before some of the presentations. So let's roll this last piece, if you would, Georg.
Peace is coming, I'm just letting you know. Hearts are blooming all around the world. Brotherhood is coming, I'm just letting you know. Peace like a flag unfurled as we join the caravan to the promised land, the home that we share deep in our heart. And we join the caravan, walking hand in hand, singing an ancient song not forgotten. The light of a calm new day. We are so beautiful, so many different colors. Listen, our hearts know the way as we join the caravan to the promised land, the home that we share deep in our heart. And we join the caravan, walking hand in hand, singing an ancient song not forgotten. Are blooming all around the world.
So as you can see, this is coming together, you know.
I'm the same, George. It's every time I watch that, it's so beautiful. So beautiful.
And
Gosh,
all
we're getting so many beautiful comments. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And all of the people who are part of this have given their time and their talent.
Yeah.
So, so share it. Will you introduce people to it? Invite them to go to www.celebratinglife2023.org and get their free tickets.
Yeah.
And let's all get together May 6th through the 14th, celebrate life, celebrate each other, and take some deep breaths, the kind that we take at the beginning of every Humanity Rising program, creating that head-heart coherence and remembering that we can make a difference in a really difficult and challenging world. Jim, you want to come in, please?
Thank you, Sedena. Thank you, George. That the last song in particular, in collage of portraits and images, was so moving. I presume that'll be one of the theme songs for Celebrating Life, because it really elicits a certain pathos about the human condition that's actually quite emotional. So thank you for bringing that in. And as you can see from the chats, people are very enthusiastic about what you're doing. And so I would just like to probe a couple of aspects. First of all, to note, and just to get your comment that, you know, the isolation of aging populations is in some ways very profoundly mirrored by the growing isolation of young people. And largely through social media, to some degree because of a sense of hopelessness about the future of the world. 2/3 of the young people under 25 believe that we're doomed because of our refusal to deal competently and creatively with climate change, etc. So, you know, it's a demographic issue, it's an age issue, but there's also something in the zeitgeist about the current world condition that I think is affecting everyone. You know, over the weekend, we had the family over for, you know, an Easter meal. And, you know, there's a general unease, I would say, about the future and about the willingness of governments, certainly in the United States, but I think in most countries, to really deal with the issues in a way that preserve the sanctity of life. So we'd just love to have your comment on the fact that, you know, when you think about Celebrating Life 2023, it's for aging people, but it's actually for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, thank you, Jim. It's so true. Everyone is involved. I think there's something like, the last time, I'm sure this has gone up, something like 3 million teenagers are the sole providers for their Alzheimer's relatives. I mean, this is a family affair. This is not just, I mean, the thing
it's
I
a
like
family issue. It's a family
issue. Yes.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, if you think about it, we have a lot of things that divide us, but we are all aging. That's one thing that we have in common. We can come together on that. But we're aging, and we can support that ageless living aspect of who we are, that energy that's timeless, unlimited, that will go on, and honor it right here and now with everybody, no matter what age they are, you know.
Jim, we are making this for, we didn't show one of the interludes that has segments of voices of young people from around the world who are telling us what they would like us to do to help save their planet, you know. We also have a process of spreading the word amongst senior centers and young people centers to get together to watch portions of this together, and then to have dialogues and explore what they can do in their local communities. And largely, that's a precursor of what we've talked about doing with Humanity Rising Network. We want people to come together as communities all around the world to visit, to talk, to share, to figure out what they can do to empower their own lives. And I think that dichotomy dilemma that, you know, we've talked about now with your insights about the young countries with younger people, There isn't anything that we can't do. You know, I often quote Mark Nepo, who says that what we reach for may be different, but what makes us reach is the same. So I'm sure when your family got together for Thanksgiving, there was some tension, but there was also the joy of being together. There was the lunacy that happens whenever families get together, you know, and that's what we need more of. We need to stop taking the bullshit that the world is trying to sell us too seriously. We have to remember we can make a difference. That old power of one that I always talk about is so essential. So, and when Sedena and I have done work with large groups, we always find that people come into the rooms and there's the, you know, the getting to know one another and the limitations and the shyness and whatnot. But by the end of the time, when they've spent time with one another, people that never thought they could ever be friends are friends. We can make this happen if we, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Well, within that context, let me deepen something that you said right at the beginning, George, which I found very intriguing. You know, normally we talk about the difference between knowledge and wisdom, which we'll get to in a moment, but you also made the point that there's a difference between digital dexterity and intelligence. I'd love to have you deepen your comment on that, because I think that is a very astute observation that's worth elaborating.
Well, I think that with the digital revolution, it did create an enormous divide between those who are younger and who are digital natives and those of us who are older. That's created an artificial barrier. The fact that my thumbs may not be as dexterous as a 15 or 16-year-old, the fact that I can't read the directions that come in these packages that were written by ants for ants. I think they're not written by human beings any longer. It dawned on me that that's created an artificial divide. And because of the commitment that technologies companies have of designing and producing for the young and not for the older, we've lost touch with the fact that older people who aren't as dexterous with their thumbs or with a particular piece of technology are not dumb. They're just different. And if we could bridge that divide, and I see it all the time in families. I see 7-year-olds sitting down with grandparents, showing them how to work their new iPhone or whatever. In some ways, it's a great opportunity. But we shouldn't equate that difference between digital natives and digital immigrants as being a lack of intelligence, a lack of wisdom, a lack of commitment, or a lack of anything else. And that's what I mean.
Just to add to that, you know, Jim, there's this, we all know this conventional view about aging. You know, it's a false perspective about aging that tells us that we decline as we age. And we see it on commercials, and it's just embedded. It's a constant propaganda that's being fed to us on a daily basis. There's a new science called neuroneogenesis. It tells us that our brains are actually designed to improve with age. There's so much that happens when we get older that we don't have when we're younger. An explosion of creativity. So many things happen to us as we get older. And I'm sure you elders or elders in training out there would know what I'm talking about. You know, yeah, thank you, Ina. Aging is a process. It's not a disease. Not a disease. When we read a book, we don't. Who doesn't want to read the last chapter? You know, we're ignoring the juiciness of life. I don't know about you, but when I look at a rose, I want to see the full bloom of a rose. That's my favorite. You know, I like the buds, but the full bloom is my favorite. So let's enjoy it. Let's celebrate our lives, regardless of our age. That's what this is about.
Well, I would love to hear more. Maybe we can do a whole session on, what did you call it, Sedena? Neurogenesis?
Neurogenesis. Oh, there's so many things I could talk about. Neuroplasticity. There's, our wisdom keeper, Bruce Lipton, talked about the biology of belief.
Yeah.
Epigenetics.
Powerful
We're
book.
above our genetics, There's so much about our environment that informs our lives, that we can turn that around and inform our lives by changing our beliefs and our perceptions.
Yeah. And I think as the populations get older, and I think this is another question I wanted to put to the two of you, since you've been really tending to aging populations for several decades now. I mean, you've been at this for a while. Have you noted I would say almost like a maturation of aging people as they take in the possibilities? Do you find working with an older demographic more challenging than you did when you started? How would you quantify the different ways that people are understanding the aging process as more and more information becomes available to the larger population?
Well, I think that there are, in the United States, when we started this work, it was like yelling into the dark.
Yeah, I can imagine.
We have been an age-obsessed population for a long time. I think part of the shift is that there are a number of people who are aging that are not trying to be younger anymore. They're actually enjoying the capacities that they have and what life offers. But aging people are, and Michael Meade has defined it better than anyone that we know in a book called Fate and Destiny. And he describes people who are aging into two categories. He divides them, olders and elders. Olders are people who haven't done a lot of personal work. They haven't evolved deeper spiritual strategies. They haven't been as willing to meet and master a lot of their fears of their lives. And so they get a little calcified. They tend to move toward the Republicans in terms of their political persuasions. And others move into life. They keep working, they keep doing, they keep learning. What's that old expression? Curiosity is the cure for boredom, and frankly, there's no cure for curiosity. So I think that there are a lot of people who are aging who are still curious and vital, and they're leading the way into the future. And if we can team them with younger generations who honor them, boy, we're unstoppable in so many ways.
We truly are unstoppable. If it's all, for me, it comes down to, again, an awareness and a perception of life. Einstein said you can look at life two ways, as if everything is a miracle or as if nothing's a miracle. It's our choice how we're going to look at life. Psychologists even tell us that becoming an elder, not an older, but an elder, is simply entering another developmental phase of life. It's like, unlike other animals, we humans live longer beyond our reproductive years, right? We're very much unlike the other animals that way. What a gift to continue to develop and grow and expand during our entire time of existence. There's so many studies about all of this, and it's exciting to me. We wouldn't have these gifts when we were younger. That's what we need to remember, that we're opening a new door, that we're coming into a new phase of our lives, and to really treasure it and work with it, and help younger people.
Yeah, it's almost like a Copernican revolution that you're laying out, that if you internalize that your brain and other bodily functions can actually mature and expand as you age. It completely blows the lid off this notion of aging as a weakness, an illness, a disease that finally kills you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then that's the scenario that we're being fed, you know. There's a study called neoteny that I love, and it reminds us that we're actually designed to maximize our childhood traits, not minimize them. Okay. So, and there's a lot of studies, Harvard studies around this. And so it's about ageless living, you know. We can be more of a child. What are some of the things you did when you were a child? Remember those things and start doing more of those things, because the more we do that, the more those neural pathways start opening up and creating new pathways. And we remember all the good stuff. And actually, we grow younger in many ways. I don't want to get into all that, but it's true. We really can grow younger. Yeah. Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of affirmations in the chats of people who
I love
completely
it.
agree with what you're saying, Sedena.
Well, good. And share it with everybody. Tell everyone, this is your gift. Celebrating Life 2023 is your gift to your tribe, to your community, to your family. Say, I have a gift for you. Watch this thing. You're going to be blown away, and you have 9 days. And I would recommend that you watch the films too, because there's some amazing films.
Wonderful. Well, listen, as we bring this program to a close, I'd like to ask each of you to answer the question that you posed to a number of the people on the video. How, first of all, would you distinguish between knowledge and wisdom? And how would each of you define what wisdom is?
I'll borrow something from Carl Jung. It's the difference between believing and knowing. And that only comes from living. It doesn't come from theorizing. It doesn't come from sitting on the sidelines. It doesn't come from avoiding your fears or your doubts or your concerns. It comes from rolling up your sleeves, wading into life, and then you know you no longer believe. And believing is susceptible to manipulation. Knowing isn't. And that, for me, is the difference between wisdom and knowledge.
Wow, that's beautiful. It reminds me of that BBC interview where the journalist asked him, do you believe in God? And he says, no, I know God. And he said it with such a modest matter of factness that it kind of stopped the conversation, because it was so obviously true that Carl Jung had come to that state of knowing. So thank you for that, George. And I think it's important too, your comment that belief is completely manipulatable. And we see it on the news all the time. We're being manipulated by information to get us to believe certain things, and then social media reinforces it. And then we ended up in the silo of loneliness. It's an extraordinary distinction that only living life deeply cures in a way. That's very profound. Thank you so much. Sedena, we'll give a final word to you.
I like what you just said. That was great. And I think you just said it, you know, it's that for me, wisdom is like a marinating of my experience. It's like the experience is just marinated like a good meal. It's like some things are better the second. I don't know if I like leftovers. Some things like certain pastas are better the next day. There's a marination that takes place when we're wise. I think it comes from, I know it comes from our experience, from what we've, you know, you can talk to people about a lot of things, but when you've had an experience, then you know it, as George was talking about. And so that's what it is for me. It's a culmination, a willingness to drop doubts and insufficiencies and just stand in my knowing.
Yeah, and when
From
you
my
think
spirit.
that knowledge and information is expanding so exponentially now, we've had people on Humanity Rising that say it's doubling every 17 minutes
Right.
now with AI and machine learning and so forth and so on. To have people in this all systems and all layers of society that can rest in a certain knowing so that they're not destabilized by information is in some ways is the code red issue. To make sure that the elders who know are kept inside the system so it has the ballast that it needs to actually solve human problems.
Yes.
Yes.
In ancient societies, there were councils of elders that were not associated with the bureaucracy, and they couldn't stop things, but they always weighed in on things.
Yeah.
And if we had that in every aspect of our culture, in every technology company, in every community and whatnot, what a difference it would make. It would slow things down enough to allow us to ask questions that ultimately would save us catastrophes over time. You know,
because without that knowing, information speeds up too quickly.
Yes,
Actually does damage to the system.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening with social media. That's what's about ready to happen with artificial intelligence, because there's not that countervailing council of elders to say, wait a minute, slow down. Let's ask some questions here, which we can solve, but only if we take the time to deliberate prudently, ideally with the precautionary principle in mind.
Right.
That's exactly what Tristan Harris has been saying in the AI series. You know?
Please watch that. Oh my gosh, that's so, it's everything you were just talking about, Jim. And knowledge, you know, yeah, it's a great thing to, you know, to have that. It's information in a lot of levels. Sometimes it's deeper than that. For me, wisdom it just surpasses it. And you're so right. It slows us down, you know, to the pulse of the earth rather than to the pulse of other things outside of us. It brings us back to our center, resets our center and our peace.
Yeah. The knowing grounds us, and we need that grounding to synthesize the exponential growth of the information all around. Well, thank you both so much. And that's celebrating Life 2023 between the 9th and the 14th of May.
6th and the 14th.
6th and the 14th of May. And the website is www.celebratinglife2023.org.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's for free. And there was a question about what we're going to do on Humanity Rising during that time. We haven't quite sorted it all out, but we will have hopefully a little daily update provided during that time as we try to listen to it as much as we can. So George and Sedena, thank you so much. Yeah,
I just want to suggest that Humanity Rising needs to have an exhibitor booth. You know, an exhibitor booth where people can go and learn about all the things that you're doing, and we're happy to coordinate that.
Fantastic. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much. I just want to acknowledge George and Sedena Cappannelli, everyone. They're people who've been on the front lines with deep passion and deep heartfulness for a very long time. And you can feel, as I think we all have today, the knowingness from which they're living their lives and producing Celebrating Life 2023. So George and Sedena, it's been an honor to have you with us and to be able to be just graced by your elderhood. So thank you. Thank you very
Jim,
much.
it's an honor to be with you and all of you and your beautiful comments. Thank you so much for being here. Really, we're honored.
For us for today, everyone. You're welcome to the after session chat. You'll see the chat link in the chat box that Stan just put up. And we'll see you again tomorrow for our next session on Humanity Rising. George and Sedena, thank you.
Thank you.
Blessings. Much love.